It began with what should have been a routine planning meeting for Royal Ascot, an event celebrated for elegance, tradition, and carefully observed protocol. Yet behind closed palace doors, a proposal emerged that instantly shifted the atmosphere. When word spread that Queen Camilla had been suggested as the leading figure in Catherine's highly anticipated procession, reactions inside royal circles were immediate. What followed was not a celebration of unity, but the beginning of a quiet battle over status, symbolism, and succession. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, few people believed the discussion would amount to anything significant. Royal Ascot had always been a carefully orchestrated showcase of tradition, where every detail was measured against decades of precedent. The event was not merely a gathering of aristocrats and racing enthusiasts. It was one of the monarchy's most visible displays of continuity, prestige, and public confidence. That was precisely why whispers surrounding the proposed procession arrangement began attracting attention far beyond the meeting rooms where they first surfaced. Preparations for Catherine's appearance had reportedly been underway for weeks. Palace staff were focused on ensuring that every aspect of the event reflected stability and elegance at a time when the royal family continued to navigate extraordinary challenges. Catherine's return to a major public role carried its own significance. Supporters viewed her participation as a reassuring symbol of resilience, while royal commentators speculated that her presence would naturally become one of the most discussed aspects of the entire occasion. Then came the proposal. According to reports circulating among royal insiders, discussions emerged suggesting that Camilla should take the leading ceremonial position in the procession associated with Catherine's appearance. On paper, the suggestion may have seemed relatively straightforward. After all, Camilla was queen. Her rank within the institution was unquestioned, yet the reaction inside royal circles suggested that the matter was far more complicated than titles alone. Almost immediately, concerns reportedly began surfacing among senior advisors. Some questioned the optics, others worried about the symbolism. Royal protocol is built upon layers of meaning that often remain invisible to the public. But within palace walls, those meanings carry enormous weight. A position in a procession is rarely just a position. It can represent authority, influence, recognition, and even future direction. That reality transformed what could have been a routine scheduling decision into something much more consequential. As conversations intensified, Catherine maintained her characteristic silence. There were no public comments, no leaks attributed directly to her circle, no indication that she intended to intervene personally. Yet that silence only fueled speculation. Those observing the situation began wondering whether her restraint reflected confidence, caution, or something else entirely. The absence of a response created a vacuum, and in royal affairs, vacuums rarely remain empty for long. Meanwhile, palace organizers reportedly found themselves caught between competing perspectives. Some argued that elevating Camilla's role would reinforce unity at the highest levels of the monarchy. Others believed it risked overshadowing an event that many already associated closely with Catherine's growing importance. What began as a proposal soon evolved into a debate. What became a debate soon evolved into a dilemma. Eventually, the issue reached the one person capable of ending the uncertainty. King Charles was briefed on the developing situation and reportedly asked to weigh the implications carefully before any final arrangements were confirmed. The responsibility now rested with him, and those closest to the process understood that whatever decision emerged would send a message far beyond Royal Ascot itself. Because what seemed like a simple ceremonial adjustment soon revealed a deeper struggle over who truly represented the monarchy's future. Royal Ascot has always been more than a sporting event. Every carriage position, every arrival order, and every public appearance carries meaning. That is why insiders were reportedly stunned when discussions emerged, suggesting that Camilla should lead the procession associated with Catherine's appearance. To some, it appeared harmless. To others, it signaled something far more significant, a public shift in influence at a moment when the monarchy was already navigating uncertainty and transition. The deeper palace officials examined the proposal, the more complicated it seemed to become. Royal Ascot was not simply a fixture on the social calendar. It was one of the monarchy's most enduring showcases of continuity, a place where tradition and symbolism carried extraordinary weight. Every year, millions watched not only for the spectacle, but for the subtle messages hidden within the ceremony itself. Those messages were rarely accidental. Every placement, every appearance, and every sequence was carefully considered long before the public ever saw it unfold. That reality is precisely what elevated concern among senior advisors. To outside observers, changing the order of a procession might appear insignificant. But within royal circles, such decisions can speak volumes. History has shown that ceremonial positioning often reflects far more than protocol. It can hint at influence, signal priorities, and reveal where attention is increasingly focused. Because of that, the proposal quickly evolved from an administrative discussion into a broader conversation about perception, representation, and the future direction of the institution. As reports of the debate circulated quietly through palace corridors, differing interpretations began to emerge. Some believed placing Camilla in a leading position would simply acknowledge her status as queen and demonstrate unity at the highest levels of the royal family. Others viewed the situation through a very different lens. They worried that such a move could unintentionally shift attention away from Catherine at a moment when public interest in her role had reached remarkable heights. What appeared straightforward to one group seemed deeply symbolic to another. The issue became even more sensitive because Catherine's popularity had been steadily growing. Over recent years, she had come to represent stability for many supporters of the monarchy. Her public engagements consistently attracted attention, while commentators frequently described her as one of the institution's most trusted figures. That growing admiration created an unusual challenge. Any decision connected to her public role was now scrutinized far more intensely than it might have been in the past. Soon, palace courtiers reportedly found themselves divided into opposing camps. Some argued that tradition required one course of action. Others insisted that modern realities demanded another. The discussions became less about logistics and more about symbolism, less about a procession and more about what that procession represented. The longer the debate continued, the more difficult compromise appeared to become. Beyond palace walls, speculation also began gathering momentum. Media insiders reportedly caught wind of the disagreement, and whispers started spreading among royal commentators. Questions emerged about what the proposal meant and why it had surfaced at this particular moment. Was it merely a routine suggestion? Or was it evidence of larger conversations taking place behind the scenes regarding influence, visibility, and the monarchy's evolving future? Nobody seemed to possess all the answers. Yet one thing was becoming increasingly clear. The discussion had moved beyond Royal Ascot itself. It had become a reflection of deeper questions surrounding public perception, royal hierarchy, and the delicate balance between present leadership and future expectations. And as opinions hardened throughout the palace, attention turned toward one man whose decision could settle the matter or ignite an even larger controversy. For King Charles, the dilemma was larger than choosing who stood at the front of a procession. It touched on questions of balance, family dynamics, public perception, and the future image of the crown itself. Those close to royal operations reportedly understood the sensitivity immediately. Whatever decision emerged would be scrutinized by supporters, critics, commentators, and palace insiders alike. And as discussions intensified, the pressure surrounding Charles reportedly grew with each passing day. What made the situation particularly difficult was that there was no solution capable of satisfying everyone. The debate had already moved beyond the practical realities of organizing a ceremonial event. It had become a question of what message the monarchy wished to send during a period marked by transition, uncertainty, and growing public attention. Every recommendation placed before the king seemed to carry consequences that extended far beyond Royal Ascot itself. Reports suggest that advisors arrived with sharply different perspectives. Some believed Camilla's position as queen naturally justified a more prominent ceremonial role. They argued that visibility and recognition were essential components of her responsibilities, and that elevating her place within the procession would simply reflect the reality of her standing within the institution. To them, the proposal represented continuity and respect for established hierarchy. Yet others reportedly viewed the matter through a completely different lens. They emphasized Catherine's unique role in the monarchy's future and warned that symbolism could not be ignored. In their assessment, public perception mattered just as much as protocol. Catherine had increasingly become one of the most admired figures within the royal family, and many believed her presence at Royal Ascot would naturally command significant attention. Altering the procession arrangement, they feared, might unintentionally create questions about priorities at a time when the institution was seeking stability. As the debate deepened, historical precedents reportedly became central to the discussion. Palace officials examined previous royal events, reviewing examples from earlier reigns and comparing ceremonial decisions that had shaped public interpretation for decades. Such reviews were not unusual. The monarchy has always relied heavily on precedent, often looking to history for guidance during moments of uncertainty. But in this case, history appeared to offer arguments for both sides, making the decision even more complicated. For Charles, the challenge was not merely determining who should stand where. The real question was how the decision would be received. Every possible outcome carried risks. If he approved the proposal, some might interpret it as diminishing Catherine's significance during an important appearance. If he rejected it, others could view the decision as a slight toward Camilla. Neither path promised an easy resolution. That reality reportedly weighed heavily on the king as the deadline approached. Royal Ascot preparations continued moving forward, but uncertainty lingered over the final arrangements. Behind the scenes, conversations grew increasingly urgent. Advisors refined their arguments. Courtiers watched developments closely. Commentators speculated endlessly about what might happen next. With each passing day, expectations increased and pressure mounted. What had begun as a debate over ceremonial positioning was now evolving into something much larger. It reflected deeper tensions surrounding public perception, influence, and the monarchy's future direction. The closer the decision came, the more apparent it became that everyone understood the stakes. This was no longer simply about a procession, it was about symbolism, about leadership, about what the crown wished to communicate during a period when every gesture seemed destined to be examined and interpreted. And yet, just as Charles appeared to be moving closer to a conclusion, new conversations reportedly began emerging behind palace walls. Fresh concerns surfaced. Additional opinions entered the discussion. Instead of simplifying the dilemma, these developments threatened to make it even more difficult to resolve. Yet while Charles considered the consequences, another development behind the scenes threatened to make the situation even more complicated. Over recent years, Catherine's position within the monarchy had evolved dramatically. Public appearances consistently generated positive attention, and many observers viewed her as a stabilizing presence during challenging periods for the institution. As Royal Ascot approached, expectations surrounding her participation reached extraordinary levels. That growing influence made the procession debate more than a scheduling question. In the eyes of many royal watchers, it became a symbolic test of where the monarchy's future focus truly belonged. The new complications emerging behind palace walls only intensified an issue that was already proving difficult for King Charles to navigate. What had once been discussed as a matter of ceremonial arrangement was now being interpreted through a much broader lens. Increasingly, conversations were centering not on who should lead a procession, but on what that decision would reveal about the monarchy itself. At the heart of those discussions stood Catherine, whose role within the institution had transformed in ways few could have predicted just a few years earlier. Her rise had not been driven by controversy or ambition. Instead, it had been built gradually through consistency, patience, and an ability to connect with the public during moments when the royal family faced extraordinary challenges. As uncertainty surrounded various aspects of royal life, Catherine often appeared to many observers as a figure of steadiness. That reputation had become one of her greatest strengths, and it was precisely why attention surrounding her Royal Ascot appearance had reached such remarkable levels. Royal commentators reportedly understood this reality well. Long before the procession debate emerged, expectations for Catherine's participation were already high. Many viewed the event as another opportunity for her to demonstrate the qualities that had made her increasingly popular among supporters of the monarchy. Every appearance seemed to reinforce the perception that she represented continuity during a period defined by change. That growing confidence from the public inevitably strengthened her influence within royal circles as well. As a result, advisors examining the procession proposal found themselves confronting a larger question. They were no longer evaluating a simple ceremonial adjustment. They were assessing how the monarchy wished to present itself at a pivotal moment. Some reportedly argued that the institution needed to acknowledge Catherine's expanding role more clearly. Others believed that maintaining traditional hierarchies remained equally important. Both sides claimed to be defending stability, yet their visions of that stability often looked very different. The debate soon became intertwined with conversations about the future. Palace officials reportedly recognized that succession planning is not limited to formal announcements or constitutional procedures. It also unfolds through symbolism, public perception, and the gradual shaping of expectations. Catherine's growing prominence naturally encouraged comparisons between present leadership and the generation expected to guide the monarchy in years to come. Those comparisons were not always spoken openly, but they increasingly influenced discussions taking place behind closed doors. That was why emotions surrounding the issue continued escalating. Supporters of different perspectives were no longer focused solely on protocol. They were debating identity, direction, and the image of the crown itself. What message would the procession send? What assumptions might the public draw? What would commentators say in the days that followed? Each question seemed to generate another layer of complexity. Meanwhile, public interest continued growing. Speculation surrounding the disagreement spread through media circles, with every new rumor adding further pressure to an already delicate situation. The longer uncertainty persisted, the more symbolic the matter became. What had started as a procedural conversation was now widely viewed as a reflection of deeper forces shaping the monarchy's future. For Charles, that transformation carried significant consequences. The king had spent days reviewing arguments, weighing risks, and considering how his decision might affect both the institution and those closest to him. Yet, as the symbolism surrounding the issue grew stronger, hesitation became increasingly difficult to justify. Delaying a ruling would only invite more speculation, more division, and more uncertainty. And it was precisely that symbolism that reportedly convinced Charles a final ruling could no longer be delayed. When the final discussions concluded, palace insiders reportedly sensed that a defining moment had arrived. Every argument had been presented. Every concern had been voiced. Now the king was expected to determine how the event would proceed. Those familiar with royal protocol understood that the ruling would resonate far beyond Royal Ascot itself. It would influence perceptions of hierarchy, responsibility, and representation at one of the monarchy's most visible public gatherings of the year. The atmosphere surrounding the decision had become impossible to ignore. For days, competing recommendations had circulated among senior advisors, each presenting a different vision of what the monarchy should project during such a significant public occasion. Some argued that ceremonial prominence should reflect established rank. Others insisted that preserving clarity around Catherine's increasingly important role was essential for the institution's future. As the debate intensified, one truth became unavoidable. This was no longer merely about a procession. It had become a test of symbolism, perception, and royal priorities. Reports suggest that Charles spent considerable time reviewing the final recommendations placed before him. Advisors reportedly emphasized institutional stability above all else, warning that even small ceremonial changes could generate unnecessary confusion. Discussions remained respectful, but they were far from simple. Every perspective carried weight. Every argument reflected genuine concerns about how the public might interpret the monarchy's actions during a period of transition and heightened scrutiny. Ultimately, Charles reached his conclusion. According to palace insiders, the proposal was rejected, and the existing procession arrangements remained unchanged. The decision brought an end to weeks of uncertainty, but it did not bring an end to the conversation. If anything, it opened a new chapter. News of the ruling reportedly spread quickly throughout royal circles, generating a mixture of relief, surprise, and renewed speculation. Supporters viewed it as a confirmation of the plans already surrounding Catherine's role, while others questioned whether the controversy had exposed deeper divisions beneath the surface of palace operations. As commentators began analysing the significance of the decision, Catherine remained at the centre of public attention. Her role within the event was preserved, reinforcing the perception that she continued to occupy an increasingly important place within the monarchy's future. Meanwhile, Camilla continued carrying out her own royal responsibilities, but questions about ceremonial priorities and long-term direction refused to disappear. Royal Ascot proceeded under extraordinary public interest, with many observers searching for meaning in every development connected to the event. What made the situation remarkable was not the outcome itself, but what the debate revealed. A proposal that once appeared administrative had evolved into a powerful symbol of influence, visibility, and succession. It demonstrated how even the smallest royal decisions can become reflections of larger questions facing the institution. And although the ruling appeared straightforward on the surface, its implications continued to spark discussion long after the meetings had ended. Yet the most important lesson was not who stood at the front of the procession, but how every royal decision can become a reflection of the crown's evolving future. Throughout royal history, moments that seemed minor at the time often revealed larger truths about changing eras. The procession debate became one such moment. It highlighted how carefully the monarchy manages symbols, appearances, and public expectations. More importantly, it demonstrated that every ceremonial decision carries meaning far beyond the event itself. In a period defined by transition, the institution remained focused on maintaining stability while preparing for the future that lies ahead. As discussions surrounding the Royal Ascot procession gradually faded, many royal observers began reflecting on what the controversy truly represented. History has repeatedly shown that seemingly small royal decisions often become markers of larger transformations. The order of a procession, the placement of a family member, or the prominence of a public appearance can sometimes reveal more about the monarchy's direction than any official statement ever could. That was why the debate continued attracting attention long after the final ruling had been delivered. At the centre of those conversations stood Catherine. Over the years, she had increasingly come to symbolize continuity, responsibility, and the future of the institution. Her growing popularity was not simply a matter of public admiration. It reflected a broader confidence that many supporters placed in the next generation of royal leadership. Meanwhile, Charles faced the difficult challenge of balancing present responsibilities with long-term planning, preserving tradition while preparing the monarchy for the years ahead. It was a delicate balancing act, one that required careful judgment and an awareness of how every decision might be interpreted. By the time the procession moved forward, the controversy that had once existed only in whispered conversations had become part of a much larger narrative. Observers watched closely, searching for clues about influence, hierarchy, and royal priorities, yet the event ultimately delivered a different message. Beyond speculation and palace intrigue, It underscored the monarchy's enduring commitment to order, continuity, and carefully managed symbolism principles that have guided the institution through generations of change and uncertainty. Royal Ascot proceeded successfully, and Catherine remained one of the event's central figures, drawing the attention many had expected from the very beginning. Charles's decision reinforced ceremonial consistency, while the palace projected an image of stability during a period when unity remained especially important. Although commentators continued debating the significance of the controversy, the event itself became another chapter in the evolving story of the modern monarchy, a reminder that traditions may adapt, but their underlying purpose often remains unchanged. In the end, the lasting significance of the debate was never really about who led a procession. It was about how the crown manages change without abandoning the principles that define it. It was about balancing the expectations of the present with the responsibilities of the future. And perhaps most importantly, it was about understanding that even the quietest decisions can carry extraordinary meaning when viewed through the lens of royal history. Because in the House of Windsor, the most powerful battles are often not fought in public. They unfold behind closed doors, through decisions that seem small in the moment, but ultimately help shape the future of the crown itself. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.